All right, everybody, it's that time. Get up, get over your hangover, grab a cup of coffee, get ready to rake the leaves. It's the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0, taping here on October the 14th. This will hit Saturday morning, October the 15th, in time to get you through your hangover from Friday night, to help push you through those weekend chores that we all love. Sarcasm intended so much. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. I'm solo this week. We had a concert that kind of screwed up our taping schedule, so the Conquistador had to bow out, not on the concert, but on taping Sports Frenzy this week. Said concert, Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers, we will have a full review of that for you next weekend. So that being said, of course, as always, we start off the weekend edition with rock and roll. As I just mentioned, our concert review for Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers, I'm going to push it back a week so Dave and I can both give you our takes, our reviews, our breakdowns of, let me just say this, another phenomenal show from Roger Clyne and the boys. And if you have never listened to Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers or the Refreshments, shame on you. Go out and get on Spotify and do it as soon as this podcast is over. So what does that leave us to review this week? Well, we're going to see Queensryche and Judas Priest 1 week from today. So that concert review will be coming up in 2 weeks on the weekend edition. So I figured, what better time to review the brand new album from Queensryche than right now. Get ready for the concert as they open for Rob Halford and company. The new album from Queensryche is Digital Noise Alliance. Now, of course, most of you out there who follow rock and roll know that Jeff Tate, the longtime frontman for Queensryche, has been estranged from the band for quite a while. They fought over everything and anything, including the name. This is one of those situations where when you lose the lead singer, every once in a while you can create magic when you bring in a new guy. Van Halen, of course, the most famous example, when Sammy Hagar came in, taking the place of David Lee Roth. Personally, for me, I think Stone Temple Pilots have done extremely well after the death of Scott Weiland with their new lead singer. The new lead singer for Skid Row, we'll get to that review. The new album, The Gang's All Here, coming in a couple weeks. Skid Row's new configuration with their new lead singer sounds fantastic. But I have to say, with Queensryche, I was just never the biggest fan of Queensryche to begin with, outside of their one classic, exceptional album to me, and that would be Empire. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that absolutely love and adore and worship Operation Mindcrime. Of course, Queensryche was one of those bands, big picture type bands, theme albums, concept albums. But outside of Empire, which I still think holds up to this day as one of the best albums of all time, I was never a huge Queensryche guy. Bits and pieces here and there. So now you don't have the driving force of Jeff Tate. To me, listening to Digital Noise Alliance, Queensryche is now just a generic band trying to find their sound all over again. And what I mean by that is, as I went through and listened to Digital Noise Alliance, I hear influences, strong influences, almost dare I say, copycat sounds from Queensryche. I hear Iron Maiden in songs like the leadoff track In Extremis. I hear a little bit of Deep Purple in the second track, Chapters. Out of the Black and Tormentum sound like they've been heavily influenced on those two songs by the band they are touring with right now, Judas Priest. And then at the very end of Digital Noise Alliance, you actually get a very awkward, bizarre cover. It's faithful, don't get me wrong, but Queensryche is not the type of band that I expect to hear doing Rebel Yell, the old Billy Idol classic from the 80s. You've got awkward attempts to recreate Queensryche history with a song like Forest, which is obviously an attempt to repeat the success of Silent Lucidity. Overall, Digital Noise Alliance is just a dull hard rock album. Most of these songs don't break any new ground. They don't stand out. This is the kind of stuff that makes me want to go listen to newer bands, especially after seeing a band like Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers, different type of music. But you see the energy and the passion that a smaller, less successful band puts out there. You got a band like Queensryche that almost seems to be resting on their laurels. A Digital Noise Alliance just didn't do it for me. I will give it a week, 1.5 frenzies. I would not recommend Digital Noise Alliance. At least I know the songs enough where when I see them next Friday night, I'll be able to recognize them, but I'll be waiting for Empire. I'll be waiting for any and every song they play off of that album above and beyond anything they would play off the new album. And you know you're going to get a couple, 2, 3 at least, from Digital Noise Alliance. All right, so we've got 3 songs to review this week, 3 new singles. Now, one of these is tricky because today, as I mentioned, taping here October the 14th of 2022, the new Alter Bridge album, Pawns and Kings, just came out. So I could wait a week or two, hold off on reviewing the 4th single from Pawns and Kings, This Is War. We have got a backload when it comes to albums we're going to be reviewing here. Dave and I have got to look at the new Bush album. He's going to have to catch up with Queensryche. We've got the new Skid Row, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago. New album from The Cult. So I don't know, as much as I've been looking forward to Alter Bridge, when we're going to be able to review the full album. So I'm going to go ahead and review the 4th single, This Is War, which it actually is the lead track, the first track on Pawns and Kings. I have been guardedly optimistic about what I have heard in the first 4 songs. 10 total tracks, by the way, on Pawns and Kings. Some have been obviously better than others. My personal favorite to this point is Sin After Sin. Silver Tongue has been growing on me. This Is War is more in the vein of the album's title track, which was the first release, Pawns and Kings. Now, I have not read a lot about the album in terms of press releases or any interviews with Miles Kennedy or Mark Tremonti, but it seems like we're heading to a theme album here. This seems like Pawns and Kings. It definitely has a feel about old-time warfare, almost medieval warfare to it. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to go any further into it than the 4 songs I've heard so far. But it really seems like the album Pawns and Kings could be a concept album. We just talked about those with Queensryche. This could be Alter Bridge's concept album about warfare. So, of course, the first track, This Is War, would reinforce that thought. And again, as I mentioned, more similar to that first single, the title track from the album Pawns and Kings, in that it's good, but it's not great. Native Tongue, Sin After Sin, much better. That being said, mediocre Alter Bridge is still better than most of the other crap you're going to find out there. So I will give This Is War 2.5 frenzies. It does almost sound like, you wrestling fans out there, I'll give you about 30 seconds to dive in here with me. It almost sounds like the theme song in many ways from the WWE wrestler Finn Balor. And of course, Alter Bridge is not unfamiliar with that realm because the WWE Hall of Famer Edge uses an Alter Bridge song as his theme, and then his group, his faction that he created, the Judgment Day, use a different Alter Bridge song for their theme. Check it out, do your research, look it up. But This Is War kind of sounds like Finn Balor's old theme before he turned heel and joined the Judgment Day. All right, moving on to Nickelback. Second single off their upcoming album, Get Rollin'. Second single is Those Days. Now, I love San Quentin. It's straightforward, meat and potatoes rock song. It's great. You got to take that one for what it's worth. Again, as more new Nickelback songs are released, as the album is released, we will debate, we will discuss, we will argue. But Dave and I agree that Nickelback is undervalued and unjustly bludgeoned, abused in the rock and roll media. Those Days is one of those instances where you say, okay, now I kind of understand why critics and hardcore hard rock fans don't like them. I just defended them, and I'm going to bash them. Those Days is probably one of the worst Nickelback songs I have ever heard. Yes, and I know people who hate them, so that's an oxymoron. Yeah, I know. I will have to backtrack on my praise of Nickelback in this one instance. Those Days is a blatant, obvious attempt to reboot the song Photograph. You can do it once. The whole nostalgia trip thing. You can do it once, and if you do it well, and they did it well on Photograph, that's fine. but don't revisit it. This is almost like a sequel to Photograph. Did not impress me at all. Going to the well one time too often. A week, two frenzies for Nickelback's Those Days. And then finally, we have the Smashing Pumpkins. The first release from this massive project. Again, Billy Corgan, just like we mentioned with Queensryche, possibly with Alter Bridge, very big on themes and concepts when it comes to albums. This big project coming out called Autumn. It's spelled Atum, but I've read that it's supposed to be pronounced like autumn. I'll split the difference. Releasing one song a week all the way into 2023 when the whole project gets released. We're not going to review each and every song each and every week, but I'm going to take a look here at the first single, Beguiled. And I'll tell you what, this is the best stuff I've heard in a long, long time from the Smashing Pumpkins. The guitar hooks, the guitar work on this song, killer. Absolutely killer. It's not overly spectacular, overly showy, but it's just solid, catchy. You can, like me, you can give or take Billy Corgan as a songwriter and a singer. And like Queensryche, I'm kind of hit and miss with the Smashing Pumpkins. Sometimes they are on and they are solid and they are great, and other times they can bore you to tears and they overreach. Beguiled is one of their better instances. So after all the negativity, all the bad reviews I've given you here in the music segment on the weekend edition, Beguiled by the Smashing Pumpkins is the one that stands out of all the music I've reviewed this week. Check out Billy Corgan and James Iha and Company. Beguiled is a great, great song. I give it 3 frenzies. Finally, wrapping up music, a little bit of news, commentary. You guys have heard Dave and I, if you've listened to this podcast over the last year plus since we started it, you know we don't have a lot of love for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they're exclusionary, they're PC, they're inclusive to the point of being exclusive. And here's where I'm going to go with that. As you go, what the heck does that mean? Inclusive by being exclusive? What the fuck, Maestro? Well, here you go. Here's your explanation. Recently, John Wenner came out. Of course, he is one of the founders, the masterminds behind the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Of course, you know his affiliation with Rolling Stone magazine, that hack rag, that hippy-dippy liberal piece of crap that used to actually care more about music, and now it's all about politics, turning their back on the rock and roll that they used to supposedly profess to love. Anyway, in a recent interview, Jan Wenner was asked why classic 70s rock bands who sold tens of millions of records, popular beyond belief, still to this day, still touring, why they never seem to make the cut each and every year to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Jan Wenner said, "We've never considered Styx, Foreigner, REO Speedwagon, or Boston ever for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we probably never will." Then he has to backtrack and basically say, well, now you got to understand, I don't have any involvement in it anymore. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm not on the nominating committee, but I can tell you right now, and I'm paraphrasing to a point, but when I paraphrase, I get 99% of it right. So he gives us a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I know that the nominating committee does not even consider these bands. Yet you put the Eurythmics in the Hall of Fame. You put the Pretenders in the Hall of Fame. You put Dolly Parton in the Hall of Fame. You put Eminem in the Hall of Fame before Styx, Foreigner, REO Speedwagon, and Boston. That's a disgrace. And once again proves to me that the people in charge, it's almost like our government. The people in charge don't know their jobs. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do it. And they're not willing to admit mistakes, correct their mistakes, and make things right. There will never be any love here for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Jan Wenner until they get this right. And by the way, yes, I think Dave would agree with me. Jan Wenner gets a seat on the sports frenzy plane of doom. All right, coming up in the next few weeks, I've already mentioned we're going to have a review of Judas Priest and Queensryche live in concert, along with Bush, the new album, Skid Row, the new album, Alter Bridge, the new album, The Cult, the new album. I just can't tell you, kids. I can't commit right now to when, what episodes we're going to be reviewing, what albums. New songs that we're going to be reviewing over the next few weeks include the brand new Queen song. It's not new, but it is new. They dug up a song with Freddie Mercury on vocals, an unreleased track called Face It Alone. So we will be reviewing that at some point here soon on Sports Frenzy. John Cougar Mellencamp, a lost, unreleased track from the upcoming deluxe reissue of Scarecrow, a song from those sessions called Carolina Shag. We'll have that for you. New Steel Panther. There's a reason why the Sports Frenzy podcast is explicit because of the title of this song I'm about to say. If you've got young ones in the room, cover their ears. Steel Panther's new song is Never Too Late to Get Some Pussy Tonight. Dave and I will review that for you in the coming weeks, and quite possibly have a review for you in early December of Steel Panther Live in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now, Dave's not going to like me committing to reviewing this song, but Bruce Springsteen's got an album coming out of old school cover songs. The most intriguing of which has turned out to be the first single. The Commodores. After Lionel Richie left to become a massively successful solo artist, the Commodores put out a huge hit song called Night Shift. Bruce Springsteen has done a cover version of Night Shift, and that is the first release from this covers album that I mentioned, Only the Strong Survive. So Either I'm going to be reviewing this or Dave and I are both going to be reviewing this in the coming weeks. So that's going to do it for the rock and roll segment here on the Sports Frenzy Weekend Edition. Coming up next, movies. I am going to give you my review of brand new Western from Walter Hill, starring Christoph Waltz, two-time Academy Award-winning actor, and Willem Dafoe, Dead for a Dollar. I am always down for a good Western. Whoops. Maybe I shouldn't have jumped the gun and said good Western. Gun, no pun intended. I am on fire here on the Weekend Edition, kids. Quick promo coming. Stay tuned. I will be right back. When the mindless zombies at the major sports networks won't leave you alone. When the forces of evil on local sports radio have you cornered. Load up the boomstick known as Sports Frenzy 2.0. Available on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, and Castbox. Kevin Dave will drive the dull and boring voices in your head away and offer you the sports salvation you need. New episodes drop every Thursday. And don't forget the Weekend Edition every Saturday, where the Maestro and the Conquistador might just review your favorite horror flick. Sports Frenzy 2.0. It's groovy. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Sports Frenzy 2.0, the Weekend Edition. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane, flying solo this week, taping here on October the 14th, 2022. This is going to hit, as always, Saturday morning, October the 15th. Get you over your hangover, get you ready to watch some college football. If you're a guy, I hope you got the right number from the right girl. Go 180. If you're one of those ladies out there, I hope you gave your number to the right guy. Because we're all about love, commitment, devotion here on Sports Frenzy. If you've been listening to this podcast for the last year and a half, you know there might be a little bit of dripping sarcasm involved there. All right, quick movie segment this week. In the coming weeks, of course, today, Halloween ends. The quote-unquote final chapter in the Michael Myers, Laurie Strode saga is hitting theaters and Peacock. So Dave and I will have a review of that coming up, hopefully next week, if not, then the week after. We'll also have a review of another major movie recently in theaters that just hit Peacock, Beast, starring Idris Elba. But for now, we get a review of a small budget Walter Hill Western called Dead for a Dollar that just came out recently. Basically almost hit theaters and on-demand video at the same time. Maybe a week buffer zone there. Put it at a week before it hit VOD. Hopefully they didn't do that because they thought they were going to get any kind of accolades or awards. And that's where I start my review. Very depressing and disappointing with the cast here involved, with the writer-director who's involved here. That Dead for a Dollar turned out to be the dull, boring underachieving, underwhelming Western that it was. Now, as I mentioned, Walter Hill directed Dead for a Dollar, wrote the screenplay. Walter Hill is one of the better directors in Hollywood and has been for 40 years. Where do I know him from, Kev? I will tell you. Directed 48 Hours and Another 48 Hours, directed the classic New York gang movie, The Warriors, had his hand in the story and the ideas behind Alien 2, Aliens, and Alien 3, among countless other movies. He has either directed or helped write. And he has always professed his love for the Western. Every now and then he has gotten to do a Western. I believe he directed The Long Riders. Those of you out there who are hardcore Western movie sycophants know what I'm talking about when I mention The Long Riders. It wasn't a huge hit, but in the pantheon of Westerns, it is well respected. So Dead for a Dollar features Christoph Waltz as a bounty hunter, Willem Dafoe is a man he put behind bars who is getting out at the time the movie starts. Is he bent on revenge? Christoph Waltz tells Willem Dafoe right off the bat, don't come looking for me. And I won't come looking for you. You've got Benjamin Bratt. Yes, that Benjamin Bratt of Law and Order fame, playing the Mexican land baron, the bad guy in the whole deal. And then you've got Rachel Brosnahan from the Amazon Prime series, is it The Marvelous Miss Maisel, where she's gotten tons of accolades for that role. She is the centerpiece of the story, the crux of the story, as she portrays the wife of a scumbag rich husband who runs away with a army deserter. Christoph Waltz is brought in by the scuzzy rich man to track down his wayward wife and her supposed paramour as they try to use her for ransom to get enough money so they can escape to Cuba. Better realms, better, warmer climes, which of course we can relate to. It's what we all want. That's your plot in a nutshell. Problem with Dead for a Dollar is that there's nothing exciting or different about the movie. Very little action. Very, very little action. You figure you're going to get a climactic gunfight in the last 15 minutes. Yeah, you get that. But even the gunfighting at the end is very pedestrian, not really well done, not really well staged. And I love Christoph Waltz. I love him from his work in the Tarantino movies where he won the awards, as Blofeld in the James Bond, Daniel Craig movies. He's okay as the bounty hunter in this, but he's not great. little bit miscast. I can kind of see what Walter Hill was going for, but it just doesn't quite work. And you can say that with Willem Dafoe as his nemesis. You could say that with Rachel Brosnahan as the quote-unquote damsel in distress. And of course, I'm not trying to be demeaning, ladies, because believe me, Walter Hill goes out of his way to make sure this movie is politically correct, which again infuriates me because Walter Hill has never been a filmmaker to bend to the will of cancel culture and PC Nation. But here he kind of does to a certain extent. This is a very talky Western. Again, not a lot of action, a lot of talking, a lot of exposition. And again, it doesn't lead to much. Now, Rachel Brosnahan, going back to her, she supposedly runs away with this wayward soldier. I did like how they explain that, yes, they kind of maybe had an affair, but in the end, it wasn't because they were passionately, madly in love. It was kind of out of convenience and kind of a fling. Again, it's not an awful, awful movie. And I could kind of see where Walter Hill wanted to go with this. But in the end, none of the pieces really come together or fit well. Rachel Brosnahan plays things a little too low-key. I think she needed to up the intensity of her performance a little bit more than she did. I think there was a lot of meat on that bone. And when I say that, I mean that role was obviously the focal role of this movie, even more so than Christoph Waltz and Willem Dafoe. She could have really taken this and run with it, but she is so low-key and so mild-mannered. It's a really, really big lost opportunity, in my opinion. So that being said, you can tell I'm disappointed, very, very disappointed in Dead for a Dollar. Really expected more out of this. Didn't expect something on the level of one of the great Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns or a Silverado or anything like that, but I did expect a lot more than this. So unfortunately, Dead for a Dollar, I can't really give it any more than a paltry 1.5 frenzies. Again, very disappointing. I expected a lot more out of this. And while it's not a complete disaster, and it's not abysmal, it's just extremely, extremely disappointing. So as I mentioned, in the coming weeks, we'll have reviews of Beast and Halloween Ends here on Sports Frenzy 2.0, the weekend edition. Coming up next, TV and streaming. I mentioned we'll talk about Werewolf by Night. Got a lot of news about a lot of the shows that Dave and I usually talk about, shows that we love, including Titans, Doom Patrol, The Boys, Supernatural. So another promo coming up. Hang out for a little bit longer with me. Flying solo this weekend. I'm the Maestro. The weekend edition will continue in just a few seconds.
Hello, this is Will Smith. You might know me as the original Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You might also know me from Bad Boys 1, Bad Boys 2, and Bad Boys for Life. And now you must also know me as an Academy Award-winning actor for King Richard. Also, by now, you know there are two things I do not like people talking about in my presence. Namely, my open marriage and my wife's lack of hair. Well, now, there is a third thing you do not talk about in front of Will Smith. You do not talk about Sports Frenzy 2.0. My boys Kevin Dave will hit slap the sports world in Hollywood each and every week on Sports Frenzy 2.0 and the Weekend Edition on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, and Stitcher. Just remember, keep Sports Frenzy's name out your damn mouth.
All right, kids, third and final segment here, Saturday morning, October the 15th, 2022. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane, taping here Friday afternoon, October the 14th. Glad to have you aboard. Dave is off this week due to scheduling conflict with our taping, but in a good way. Saw Roger Klein and the Peacemakers when we would normally be recording Sports Frenzy 2.0 for you. So, rock and roll took precedence. I'm solo this week. Dave will be back next week. TV and streaming. Disney Plus, the latest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4 1-hour special, just came out last Friday, just in time for October, just in time for Halloween. One of the greatest Marvel characters from their 70s horror phase. Those of you who've read your comic books know Tomb of Dracula. Of course, that's where Blade came from. And my personal favorite, Werewolf by Night, the saga of Jack Russell, who, of course, is a werewolf. So I was very excited when I saw that Marvel and Disney Plus were going to put out an hour-long special focusing on Werewolf by Night. Now, they do botch the casting of Jack Russell. Number one, let me say I'm just glad that they kept it as Jack Russell and didn't change the character because, of course, Jack Russell in the 70s was kind of a blonde, pasty white guy, almost a surfer dude, which I'm fine with, but of course, the PC cancel culture establishment would freak out about. And all the snowflakes in charge at Disney obviously didn't want to fully commit to that. So they cast Gael Garcia Bernal, the acclaimed Spanish actor, as Jack Russell. Okay, we get beyond that. Werewolf by Night shot in black and white for the most part, with a little bit of color splashed in, a la Sin City, a la the old Universal monster movies, Frankenstein, Dracula, the werewolf. Works very, very, very well. Kudos to Marvel and Disney Plus for this. And I happened to look into some reviews, early reviews, after I watched it on IMDb, and I saw one person come out and say this is the best that we've seen from Marvel in Phase 4, and I would agree. I did like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but agree outside of maybe that. Now, Werewolf by Night, it's almost frustrating in that they could have fleshed this out, and it could have been an 8-episode series without problems. But they dump you into the middle of the storyline. Monster hunters gathering together with the promise of acquiring the mystical token known as the Bloodstone. And again, if you know the original Werewolf by Night, you know what the Bloodstone represents. And you can tell right away as Jack Russell enters in as one of these fearsome, tough monster hunters, there's something not quite right. But they are tasked with going out and hunting a fearsome monster in the grounds of the Bloodstone estate. It's a maze a la The Shining, a la Squid Game. And I don't want to give any spoilers. It's only been out here for a week or so. But another great 70s Marvel Monster Universe character is integral in Werewolf by Night. And he steals the show. Let me just say that. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, even though if you go out anywhere and do any research on Werewolf by Night, they will spoil it for you. I don't want to do that. But again, like I said, black and white, visually stunning. It is violent to a point. The blood is not shown red graphically, if you understand what I'm saying. The blood, any kind of violence is still black and white, but red is used, obviously, with a token like the Bloodstone. You know you're going to get that red. And then, of course, there are allusions to, brilliantly, The Wizard of Oz, which, again, another movie that went from black and white to color in the middle of the movie. So, again, very creative, very well done. Hope we see more of Werewolf by Night, even though, again, I don't like the casting. Gael Garcia Bernal is fine as Jack Russell. Again, I wanted them to keep Jack Russell, but I wanted them to cast it like in the 70s comic books where they failed miserably. I do want to give a shout out to Laura Donnelly, who plays Elsa Bloodstone, the estranged daughter of the Bloodstone clan. She's great. Very, very, very good acting on her part. She's very intriguing, very interesting throughout this hour-long Disney Plus special. So that being said, I give Werewolf by Night a strong 3 frenzies. Highly recommend it. It's best. I will agree with that reviewer that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Very, very well done, and probably the best thing we've seen from Marvel in the current phase 4. Definitely better than Black Widow. Definitely better than the Eternals. I don't know if I would say it's better than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but it's close. Werewolf by Night, very good. Check it out. All right, other TV and streaming news to discuss. The DC universe. Finally, we're getting season 4 of Titans and season 4 of Doom Patrol on HBO Max. Of course, we've heard nothing but bad news from Warner Brothers, Discovery, HBO Max about staffing cuts, budget cuts. But we're getting the Titans and we're getting Doom Patrol back for season 4 on each. Titans debuts November the 3rd on HBO Max. Doom Patrol will debut December the 8th. Now, here's the thing that upsets me. As opposed to the previous 3 seasons for both shows, we are going to get split seasons. So basically, Titans will run up until Doom Patrol debuts, and then Doom Patrol will run for another 4 to 5 weeks. And then in 2023, at some point, part 2 of season 4 for both shows will debut, and we'll get the second half of season 4 for both Titans and Doom Patrol. The split season thing is a load of crap. They just did that recently with Resident Alien season 2 on Sci-Fi. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. And of course, Walking Dead is the worst example, as they have stretched out this final season for what seems like 2 to 2.5 years. Nothing wrong with a break over the holidays, like we're used to with regular network television seasons. Once you start Thanksgiving, you go through Christmas and New Year's, you expect reruns, repeats, or the shows to be off the air. But this split season garbage, where you go 3 or 4 months before you resume the quote-unquote current season, it's garbage and it needs to stop. We forget what happened in the first half of the season. Even older people like me, we don't have the ADD that younger people do with the phones and the video games, but we still can't remember 4 or 5 months in the past to what happened at the end of the first part of this season. Dave and I were talking about this driving down to see our concert the other night. God bless the conquistador. He said, whoever came up with this idea of split seasons should be shot. I'd prefer just to put him on the plane of doom. Draw out the agony a little bit more. But at least we're still getting the Titans and Doom Patrol, so we'll take that. A show that I have watched that Dave has not yet. Very interesting, quirky, solid first season starring Josh Brolin. Outer Range has been renewed for season 2 on Amazon Prime. I will definitely watch season 2. Season 1 was very odd, but very interesting. Of course, you know Dave and I love The Boys. Season 4 hopefully coming sooner rather than later. They have released images of 2 new characters that will appear in season 4, Sister Sage and Firecracker, 2 female characters. Images are available online. No, not those type of images. You dirty rat bastard. I know what you're thinking. Of course, we know still to come is Jeffrey Dean Morgan, his character. We all know about the ties between The Boys and Supernatural. Wow, what a great segue, Maestro. Speaking of Supernatural, the prequel series, The Winchesters, just debuted this past week on the CW. And again, going back to the aforementioned Warner Brothers budget cuts, financial issues, CW recently changing hands. Who knows what's to become of that network? Who knows if it's still going to be a network? in 5-10 years. But as they cling to life, they dig back in the past to one of their, if not their most successful shows, Supernatural. Now we get Sam and Dean's father and mother, how they met, how they started out as hunters. So, of course, you've got a built-in curiosity, a built-in audience with all of us diehard Supernatural fans out there. Ratings, at least for the CW, look to be pretty good. I would be shocked if they don't renew it immediately just because they've got nothing else to hang their hats on. I haven't finished the first episode yet. I was a tad bit concerned when I saw the trailers and the previews. And what I saw the first half an hour or so of the first episode did not alleviate my fears. Hopefully it's going to get better. But the first 30 minutes that I saw of the debut episode of The Winchesters does not have the same feel to me as Supernatural. The acting is not nearly as good. Again, I'll stick with it for a while, give it a chance. I owe it that much, but I would exercise extreme caution if you are not a diehard Supernatural fan when it comes to the Winchesters. Then finally, before we move on to our moments of silence, news just came out. The Netflix ad option. The price point has now been established. Coming out here in early November is my understanding. Netflix with ads will be $7 a month. Now, there are going to be a limited amount of movies and shows that will not be included in the with ad version of Netflix due to contractual situations. But the more interesting twist to this is I have complained, and the reason why I have not, for the most part, outside of when Stranger Things was back on, I've complained about I don't have Netflix because I can't stand the picture quality. I'm not paying $15 a month to get high def on what I consider to now be a subpar selection of movies and shows. Well, now the basic service with no ads, which I believe is staying at $10 a month, 9 or 10, is now bumping up the picture quality to 720 high def. This is actually a smart move on Netflix part. This would encourage me to pay the extra money to go without ads, go back to my old plan. If they finally realized they were screwing us all along and they've bumped up the picture quality, I will pay $10 a month for Netflix in high def, especially if it's no ads. We'll see. I'm skeptical, as I am about everything in life. I'll believe it when I see it. Of course, I will sign up for Netflix again so I can watch The Glass Onion, aka Knives Out 2. All right, moments of silence. 2 showbiz ladies passed away. One obviously much more famous than the other, but still two noteworthy deaths in the world of entertainment. First off, Judy Tenuta. Some of you out there probably are scratching your head going, who? It's an MTV era type of thing. If you weren't into MTV back in its heyday, female comedian, wasn't my cup of tea, but notable for her brief run at Fame and Fortune back in the MTV era. And of course, I've had this debate with friends of mine. There were certain shows you watched with your family when you were younger. For me, it was Dallas. I admit it. I watched Dallas with my mom when I was a kid. Another show that other people watched with their parents was Murder, She Wrote. So, of course, popular show beyond belief, and the lead actress in that was the legendary Angela Lansbury. So here on Sports Frenzy, we give our thoughts and our prayers to Angela Lansbury, her friends, her family. She will be missed. Of course, we have to do our pivot, moving from solemn thoughts to those who have left us, to ripping on the stupid people of the world who are still with us and still causing us problems and issues to this day. First off, if you listen to our sports edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0, which hits every Thursday, you will know that the football world is always dealing with issues when it comes to injuries, violence, concussions. It's just the nature of the game when it comes to football in America. And of course, the snowflakes don't like it. The snowflakes want us all to play soccer. That namby-pamby, boring game where guys get kicked in the shin and fall to the ground crying like little 4-year-old babies. So John Oliver, that paragon of masculinity who hosts that HBO show this week with John Oliver, I think it is. I've never watched it. I never will. But of course, even if you just want to look at the news on one website once a day, stuff like this pops up. John Oliver, after the Tua Tagovailoa Miami Dolphins issue, he's the quarterback for the Dolphins. There's questions about should they have put him back in on a short week after what looked like a concussion. Then he gets hurt again in a very ugly scene, even though he didn't really take a massive hit. His reaction to the hit was scary. He has not played since. But of course, John Oliver, who couldn't find his balls in a sack if there was nothing else in there but a paper clip, criticizes football because of this Tua Tagovailoa concussion debate and says maybe football shouldn't exist anymore. So what, John? Do you want us to just watch guys and dolls? You just want us to, crochet and knit? I am so tired of snowflakes I am so tired of PC garbage. I'm so tired of men who aren't men. And John Oliver has said so much crap recently that has upset me and pissed me off. He has earned his spot on the Sports Frenzy plane of doom, along with all of his other stupid talk show cohorts like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel. John Oliver is a dumbass. A guy who I respect in the world of comics, Alan Moore, very creative guy. I believe he was responsible for Watchmen, among other very creative projects in the world of comics, has now decided to come out and say that our society's love for superheroes, especially those who are fanatics about the comic book world and the superheroes, this is all a precursor to fascism. Singling out people who voted for Donald Trump. Again, celebrities don't know more than we do. Alan Moore, John Oliver, and my third upcoming dumbass of the week don't know anything more about politics or how to run the country or how to run government than you or I. They are not geniuses. They do not have master's degrees in political science. Most of them do not have legitimate college degrees. A lot of them get honorary degrees, which doesn't mean jack shit. Alan Moore, John Oliver are not smarter than you and I, but they spout off like they should be running the country. Alan Moore, for all the creativity, all the intriguing, interesting stuff you've done in the comic book world, I praise you for that. But for this stupid comment, and yes, I realize that in a way he's referring to The Boys on Amazon Prime, because Amazon Prime's The Boys is a look at what would happen if we had superheroes and that went too far. Here's the thing, Alan Moore, that's not the world we live in. There's a difference between The Boys and what you're talking about. Fantasy versus reality. It's just a dumb-ass statement from another dumb-ass liberal. Finally, Mindy Kaling. I never liked The Office. It's okay. I know there's a lot of you out there going, oh, how can you not like The Office? Oh my. It's fine. It's not the greatest show of all time. It was okay. It had its moments. You take Dwight Schrute out of it, it's just boring beyond belief. And Mindy Kaling somehow made a career out of being the seventh funniest person on the show. I still don't know what people find appealing about her, what they find entertaining or funny about her. But of course, she's been given free rein now to redefine the Scooby-Doo universe. Now, of course, last week, Dave and I talked about the fact that in a different Scooby-Doo project coming out on HBO Max, Velma is shockingly disclosed to be a lesbian. Okay. Do with it what you will. Something that we pretty much knew going back to the 70s. Not a shocking disclosure, but Mindy Kaling, of course, gets to now do a separate series just focusing on Velma called Velma. She has to go again a step further and say the Scooby-Doo human characters were, quote, not defined by their whiteness, unquote. Because she has turned Velma into an Asian American character. And I'm sure she'll be a lesbian still. How is this not racist to say something like this? Why does Mindy Kaling get to say these characters are not defined by their whiteness? Whiteness to me sounds like a racial epithet. Shame on you, Mindy Kaling. You have no talent. You're not funny. And you're the reason, among many thousands of others, that I hate Hollywood and celebrities. That's it for the weekend edition, kids. Hope you enjoyed it. Dave will be back with me next week. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week.